an interesting project. And he's gone on to be at the Parsons School of Design in New York, so he's kind of gone the creative route, and so we have some creative questions for him. So big welcome for Jonathan. And then we have Beatrice Juzu in the middle, and Beatrice is a graduate of ours who started a program. Beatrice grew up on the south side of Trenton. Those of you who know anything about south side of Trenton, you know it's not a place you want to grow up. So Beatrice decided she was going to help make it much better. And Beatrice is an amazing person who has incredible talents in the arts in a number of different areas, and she put those talents to use to get youth off the street and help them feel empowered and creative and able to do things. And as a result of that, she was able to stop some of these middle schoolers as they went into high school derailing and getting into gangs and doing other things. So this is an amazing program that she started. It's been a tremendous success. She's now taken it year round, and we're looking forward to hearing about what her prospects are for it going forward. So big welcome for Beatrice. And Katerina, I first met as a graduate student, right? You were still undergrad at that time, okay. And she's now in the med school. Katerina started an organization that actually is amazing in its simplicity and so effective. And that is that she started an organization to kit out the consumable pieces that are needed when you do cataract surgery. And in those small kits, she was able to put together all that stuff. So when you get doctors who are willing to give a week to go over to an African country or somewhere like that and do cataract surgeries for a week, they can get through twice as many because those packs are already kitted out. They just pick one, they go, they do the next surgery, pick one, go, do the next surgery, and so on. And that's really made a huge difference to the level of impact these doctors can have. And it's a really, really simple model. And one of the questions we have for tonight is how we can take that model and do other things with it. So congratulations to Katerina, and welcome to Katerina as well. So now I have my handy dandy cheat sheet of questions from all of you guys. You guys had some great questions. Sorry that I won't be able to fit all of them in. But I combined some of them, and some of them you might recognize sort of more verbatim as being your questions, but we had a lot of really good questions, so thank you for submitting some of those. So, Beatrice, why don't we start with you and ask you, one of the questions that came up a fair amount about all nonprofits was how you actually make it sustainable. How do you get, with a not-for-profit organization, how do you get to the point where you can make it pay for itself or keep it going?
Yo. Can you hear me? All right. So that has been, and I say has been because it's still a question of mine, in that it's, one, you need to understand your model and how you're going to generate income. Obviously, that's an obvious, that's a given. But I was able to, come up with this model where it's, you get, in addition to grants that you can't, you have to have grants that are going to come in 4 years at a time, or multiple year grants, because if you depend on one huge grant and you get the staffing and you get the equipment, when that grant is up, how are you going to maintain that? So you want to get the smaller, more sustainable or longer lasting grants. Also, you need to develop the model, or so I put my students to work. How can they be assets to the community? So we have a job training program with local organizations, local businesses in the community, where they say they want a commercial. I actually got this idea from Polly a while ago. They want a commercial for their business with the training that they get from the filmmaking program that we have, rigorous filmmaking program that I designed. They can then take those techniques, create a short commercial, infomercial, whatever the organization or the business wants, and then we'll solicit, I guess we'll charge them a fee for that. And then that's one way that you can make it sustainable. So you just gotta get a lot, really creative with how you're going to allow the students as well as the business to function together to allow things to merge up. That make sense?
Yes.
Sure. Okay.
Okay, Katerina, so how did you first get the program going? Why did you think of cataract surgeries, and how did you first get it going, and what is your sustainability model?
Can you guys hear me without the mic, or do you want me to use the mic? You can hear me? Okay. So I had been on 3 projects, 3 2-week projects abroad to Honduras, Mexico, and Peru. And I had worked in the clinics. They were all ophthalmology surgery projects. I had worked in the clinics, then moving up into the OR. I kind of just realized the need for the supply source, and we got back home and from the projects, and I definitely thought that this would have happened already. I was surprised that I was the first one in the market, I guess I could say. So that's kind of how I got the idea.
So what is your sustainability model?
Our sustainability model is that doctors love it, and they once they use the kits, they want to come back and they want to use it more. So, and we're kind of on the opposite side of the problem, is that doctors want us to be a big organization and produce more kits, but unfortunately, just me being the entrepreneur and being the board, we wanted to keep it small. So we've kind of had the opposite problem of sustainability, and that was just my personal decision being in medical school. I remember very distinctly when I got my acceptance into medical school, May of my senior year, and I'd been working at this for 1.5 years already. We'd had some good projects and we'd used a lot of kits already. Sitting down with my mentor and being like, your life is going to change and you're going to be into medical school. Do you want to scale this business? Do you want to hand this business off to someone? Or do you want to keep it small and keep it sustainable with you having full control of the business? And at the time I decided to keep it small, and whether or not that was the right decision, I guess we'll see, but it worked for me, and I passed medical school and was able to do a couple more projects during the 4 years of medical school. So it was a decision you have to make as an entrepreneur.
I was about to ask something. Partnerships are also very wise to have and maintain. Why recreate the wheel when you can just merge brains? So partnerships are important and essential to sustainability.
Very important, and you have a very creative enterprise. How do you teach that creativity to your students?
Wow. I guess, so my motto is everybody, every single person, even in this room, manifests or has some sort of art to them. It's just a matter of time, it's just a matter of picking at it, it's just a matter of mastering it. So with that belief in mind, we really take time out to get to know each individual student and figure out what their art is. Once we pull that art out, that is where the magic happens. The magic happens when they figure out that they love film, or they love paste or collage making, or whatever the case, whatever art it may be, and then they go balls to the wall. Excuse me. But they really go with it, and it's for the very first time. Well, I'm not going to say that, that's a generalization, but for one of the only times in their life, they have something that they can call their own, and that they have all the autonomy in the world to create it, and all the support in the world with the limitation of the sky. They don't have any parameters other than create a kick-ass project, and we will support you, and we will do our best to get it out there for your community and your parents and friends and whoever else to see it. And that's pride building.
So Jonathan, building on that then, one of the students, stage and film director Julie Taymor, is quoted as saying that creativity is born and not made. So do you agree with that? And if not, why not? Or so, why so?
Right, so I think, so talking about creativity, I would agree that we all have a little bit of art inside of us, and it's about picking at it and really forming, creativity. You have to nurture creativity. Creativity doesn't happen just when you want it to. It's something you have to, it's a continual process of engagement. Creativity, there's a definition of creativity by Sawyer and Csikszentmihalyi. Some of you might have read some of those works. And they talk about creativity being big C creativity. So we think Gandhi or Martin Luther King Jr., those were big C creatives. They did awesome things in society. But then there's also small c creativity, which is daily creativity. So when you were getting up this morning and you chose what to put on or what to wear, you were engaging in small c creativity. So you're making creative choices and decisions every single day, and you did that maybe when you got your dinner tonight. So you're engaging with creativity at times you don't even realize it. So I think we all have creativity. We just express it in different ways. So Steve Jobs, that type of creativity is very different than you picking out your clothes for the day. but you're both engaging in the creative process at the same time. So.
And you did a project on how that happens in rural North Carolina, actually, because you're from rural North Carolina, right? And so what did you discover about that? What did you find out?
Right, so creativity is a process, so everyone can engage in creativity if we have that understanding. So the process itself of creativity is something that everyone can capitalize on. So rural entrepreneurs are engaging in the same creative process that you're engaging on when you're like writing a paper here at Wake Forest. So the process is not necessarily different, but it's the place that it's happening and how that influences creativity sometimes has a bearing on it. So rural entrepreneurs, they have what I like to call a lack of novel stimulation sometimes. This was one of the findings from my research. If you're sitting in the middle of a cornfield and you're wanting to come up with the next great product idea in fashion, it might not happen there because there's not a lot of stimuli going on around you. And also, if you're in the middle of rural North Carolina, using the fashion example, you're not near any of the experts in your field, and you sometimes need those experts in order to create something better than what you already know. So we talk about like market research. You need to know your market. You need to know like who you're wanting to design for or what your product's going to be. And so if you don't have this field of knowledge around you to like first access, and you have a lot of trouble actually creating for or designing for your end user that you're wanting to look into. So rural entrepreneurs have issues with, one, getting stimulated, and then two, having access to just experts and the body of knowledge that they can actually create from.
So getting stimulated is one of the things. Where do you find your ideas? You found your idea by traveling on your trips abroad, right? How did you find your idea, Beatrice, to even do this?
Well, as you said, west side of the train.
Oh, sorry.
No, you're good.
West side of Trent.
I tell this story over and over again, but it never gets tired because I need to always go back to this. I dropped out of the basketball team to become a poet. And once I discovered my love of words, once I understood what those words could do and how I can make sense of a crazy household with, let's just say, not so many resources, that meant something to me. And I was one of the good ones. I was one of the, I was on a scholar track. I was in a program at Princeton University, AP courses, all that good stuff, the typical stuff that got y'all away. But still, there was still a pain to me. So here I am, this good girl on a good track, extracurriculars, presidents, all that. So what about the other ones? What about the ones who are dropouts, who are not so academically gifted, who are just not immediately interested or interesting? And they are just, I founded it with the whole idea that they are just as integral as the good ones. And with that being said, knowing that there is this duality and a whole spectrum between that duality, I wanted to make sure that I created an organization that would cater toward that. An organization for all kinds of teens to express themselves respectfully and honorably in the arts, in a space where it's safe and comfortable to do so. And that's what gives me the fervor, that's what gives me the passion to press forward. Did I answer the question?
Yes, a lot of passion, thank you. So, Jonathan, how did you get the idea to start Delightfully Daisy?
Delightfully Daisy, I was 13 at the time, and I had a dog named Daisy, who I loved very much. And I was in the kitchen at Easter back in the day, and I was a teenager, and it was around Easter time, and Easter eggs were just not cool for 13-year-olds to do anymore. So I was like, you know what, I'm not going to do this this year. But I decided to make cookies for like the family, and so I made dog treats as well. It was something that just kind of started. I started never with the intention in mind of making it a business or making it a venture. I started it just doing it because it was fun, and it was something I wanted to do for my dog. So Delightfully Daisy kind of grew from that. It was never the plan to make it a business, and it just I happened upon the business aspect of it. but obviously I really like my dog, so that's what keeps me going, you know, to do it is the pets and the people that they're getting the products at the end of the day.
So let's talk about obstacles. I mean, obstacles are huge when you first start out, and you have a lot of things you need to overcome, surprises that came your way. Katerina, can you share some of the obstacles that you ran into in trying to put this together?
Oh gosh, there isn't enough time. But I guess the biggest obstacle for me was, you know, I had been on these trips. I knew what I wanted to do. I knew what the final product looked like. I kind of had an idea of, I guess, you could say the operation side of it. But I didn't even know what the word operations meant when I started this company. And I guess one of the things that got me over that obstacle was a great mentor, a local businessman. I remember, I remember sitting down with my mentor and he explained to me what a business model was, because I had never taken a business course in my life. I wasn't lucky enough to take this class in undergrad. I was like a straight bio major with a chem minor. So that was the biggest obstacle for me, was getting into the business world and translating what I saw as my idea into what business people would understand and what investors would want to know about the business. So that was a big obstacle. And then also being 19, starting a nonprofit that wasn't even like a local nonprofit. You know, 100 people will tell you that you're going to fail, but I kind of have like the grit to say, no, you're wrong, and this is going to work, and this is why. So I think business, that was a big obstacle, and you know, thank God I did it, because now I did the MBA and I realized how stupid I was and how many stupid mistakes I made, but I'm still happy I did it. And then also just having like, you know, there's really no other word for it other than grit, and you just have to stick with it and be confident in yourself. So, which has translated into like a lot of other areas of my life. You know, being in medical school, being in patients, you know, you have to be confident, and being in business school. So it's a great experience. If, you know, there's obstacles and you're going to make a million mistakes, but hopefully you'll make some good decisions and something good will come of it. And if it doesn't, then I mean, you still have the experience and you still learn a lot on the way. So it's still a great process. So I think that answers your question.
The biggest obstacle for me was figuring out how Both Hands, which is the organization, would exist without me. Once you figure out, and I think that's starting with the exit strategy, how you gonna get out of the business is something that you all should start with. I don't think that didn't make sense to me when I was first starting out. Like, what? I want to do this for the rest of my life, but you can't. Because if you do it for the rest of your life, then you won't move on. And you'll be stuck with, you'll be sort of like restricting yourself to parameters. So once I realized that this cannot make the impact that it deserves, that it can make, if I just think about how I would do it. First, instead of thinking of it like that, how should it be done so it can reach the masses outside of Trenton? And that obviously can't happen with me. I can't be in 30 places at the same time. So thinking about scaling and how you're going to get out of the business, whether it's nonprofit or for-profit, LLC, S Corp, C Corp, B Corp, whatever, how are you going to get out of it? And finally, when I finally grasped that, when I finally created the exit strategy, that fine-tuned the business strategy, that fine-tuned the partnership strategy, and all of the other things that come along with that. So that to me was the hardest component, figuring out how the business would last or work without me or outside of me. Does that make sense? All right. I just want to make sure, because I tend to ramble.
Jonathan, you had problems with scaling too. Why don't you talk to some of the obstacles you ran into with that?
So scaling is still an issue with Delightfully Daisy. So I'm no longer in the day-to-day operations of Delightfully Daisy, but I do still look at some of the big picture things. So scaling has always been a problem with getting enough treats out the door when we need it. So scaling is rough, and this was a problem just a few weeks ago. We got an order for 40,000 bones, and there's no way we can do that. And it's always really tough when you see a huge order come through the door. But as as the business owner or operator, I had to say no to that order, and it takes a lot of. It's painful, But if we were to produce 40,000 treats, the treats would no longer be handmade, would really destroy the brand that we created originally. So you have to, scaling is one thing, but staying true to the values and the missions that you set out to in the beginning is even more important, because you wouldn't be there where you are today without sticking to those missions and values. So that might seem really conceptual in the beginning when you're thinking about, what is this brand that I'm building, what's it going to be? So scaling, like I said, is still a problem. We're looking into buying a couple more pieces of equipment right now. But then there's the capital aspect of that too. It's like you're investing in something that you might not get a return on for several months or several orders later. And it's like, am I willing to make that kind of investment, and where do I need to look in order to get the capital to do that right now? So scaling is still a problem, and I wish I had the answer for it. But at the end of the day, sticking to those missions and values is more important than scaling in most respects.
So how do you measure success in your different areas? I mean, Katerina, how do you, is it just the number of kits you send out, or is there other impact measures that you have around what a difference you're making?
I think for me, at the beginning, I thought a successful organization would be like one kit. I just wanted one kit to go out. So I think right now we're up to between 2,000 and 2,500. So, I mean, I guess I consider that successful. I don't know if someone looking out from, analyzing my organization would consider that success, but I guess for me, it's successful and it's my company, so I get to define what is successful. So I guess it's a hard question to answer, but.
Do you have any way to measure the impact in terms of numbers of surgeries that get done, or do you track there's any reporting that comes back from the doctors who use your services to be able to show impact as well as sheer activity?
I guess the impact, one kit is one surgery, so that's one person that was blind and then now they see. But in terms of going from 50 surgeries a day to like 75 or 100, we haven't really asked physicians to get that kind of data just because it's such a crazy place anyways. You'd almost have to have like someone in the OR counting, not contributing to the running of the OR to do that. So in terms of those things, we haven't anything like that other than anecdotal evidence and surgeons telling us how much they love it and how much it improved everything in the OR. So.
Yeah, Beatrice, you have a success that's measured in terms of lifetimes. I mean, it's not a kit that goes out that you can count. It's how does a life turn out? How do you capture for the people that you want to have invest in you and invest in your program? How do you capture for them the real impact you're having?
Two measures of success. Personally, I have this like chill metric. If I get chills for about 80% of the time, then I'm doing something right. But also, three. I give pre-program surveys. So before they get into the program, they have to fill out an assessment. Basic questions like, what does art mean to you? Do you use art in your everyday life? What do you do when you're not in school? Do you go to school? What do you think about the instructor? Just basic questions like that. And then I ask them film questions specifically so I can assess where they are. And then later on, I ask I give them a post survey. So same sort of questions, but asking them very specifically, even more, but specifically like, tell me about film. Are you interested? Did this program help you discover nuances about film? 100% of the participants always answer yes. And that's basically how I know that it's working. Another way that I know it's working, and the tangible measure is, on the very first day of the program, I always have these butterflies. Where, oh my God, are they gonna like it? Are they gonna come back on the Tuesday? It is always a nervousness to it. But then at the end of it, we all get together in a circle and we do our prime directive. We say our prime directive together. We are the young artists of both hands. We vow to use art as a positive outlet regardless of situations with which we are faced. And it's like 6 other lines to that. But they say that and they mean it. And then I get text messages at like 9 o'clock at night because the program goes directly at the school from 3 to about 7:30. And I get text messages at 9 saying, hey, do you have any more space? My friend will probably very much so be interested in it, and I want to bring them. Do we have space? And my heart can't turn them down. So we have overcapacity always, but that lets me know that I can't turn down a kid or a teen just because I want to keep a 1 to 12 student to instructor ratio. No, the mission is, like Jonathan was saying, if the mission is to create impact, create a space that these teens can come to and feel safe and feel creative, what do I look like? What do I look like turning down a teen? So that's how, in conclusion, I know it works. How I measure it.
Do you have any of your alums coming back? Do you have you had enough alums yet?
Yeah. So all of my alums are currently like in their junior year of college. So junior, we got all freshman, junior, and no seniors yet. And they always come back every summer. Hey, Benny, can I do some film editing? And then they end up mentoring one of the current both hands young artists. Hey, Benny, what do you think about this video? Oh, did you watch this movie yet? Yo, I love. So I'm only one person, but I make sure I stay in touch with the alum. I make sure they always feel like they have some sort of space where they can continuously be creative or help another person be creative. So I think I mentioned this earlier, but really building a culture, especially when you're working with young people, can really help because it makes them feel like they're a part of something. It makes them feel like without them, this organization won't exist. And really it won't. It wouldn't, because it's up to them to tell their friends to continue it. Can I answer the question? Yeah, gotta make sure.
So Jonathan, how about you? How do you measure success for, like Daisy? I mean, for there it's sales, right? But what else might there be in the way of measures of success for that?
Right. So I mean, it's easy. It's like you count how many bags have you sold, how many phones have you sold. There's also, you hear stories of people that have really enjoyed the product. I think that kind of like case study evidence is nice. Although when measuring success, I might speak to like the research component that I've done, because I think I look at it in the rural research in a very interesting way. And how I measure success is that I'm having conversations with people about important issues that are happening in rural areas. So if I have a conversation and it makes someone uncomfortable or it makes them think about the issues at hand, then that's a success. And so when you're dealing with like social innovation, social entrepreneurship, the metrics are not quite there. So like a conversation as a metric is, it's kind of hard to grasp, but it's just not having a conversation, it's having a conversation that's productive. And I think in my work, in my research work, that's kind of how I gauge how I'm doing.
So how do you, I mean, to that point, to build on that, how do you measure influence? How do you measure impact in that way? I mean, you had the conversation, it was impactful. You had another conversation. How do you assess whether it's more impactful or less impactful than the first one you had, or whether the chain continues?
Yeah. So I mean, normally if I'm doing research work and I might speak to like a group of residents from my home county. So I might speak to 20 people, but then afterwards I get follow-up from 2. So you can kind of measure impact in that way, or you can connect with maybe a policymaker, and if the policymaker never returns your call, then you can't measure that as a success. But if you leave a call, they schedule a meeting, you get a phone call with them, you can measure success in those ways. So starting a conversation and maybe not finishing it, that's not a success. So I guess it's a quasi way of measuring it.
So these are metrics of success as you look forward for your 3 areas of focus here. How do you think you're going to be able to build on that and expand that success and make that a more important thing? What other areas are you thinking of going into, or you think it could apply to? And how Jonathan, why don't you start with that, since you were just talking about it? How do you go forward from here?
Yeah, that's a great question. And I think that the best thing that you can do is, I mean, if you're really wanting to get success metrics, you need to move to numbers in some way. And it's easy. So, I mean, I'm wanting to take my research work and put it into an entity that resembles a chamber of commerce. That's the ultimate goal. And so when I'm able to take these things that are really fuzzy and move it into maybe a physical form, then you can measure how many people come in the door every day. So for me, it's about transitioning to something that is measurable in a very real way. And what that looks like, I'm not really sure yet, but I think that's a fun space to be in when you're not sure of what the next step is.
Adventures, how about you?
If, I think, can y'all hear me without the mic? I guess, so getting back to that whole idea of scaling, if I'm so passionate about this organization and how it works, then I should be able to take the same passion and mentor or train some equally passionate, equally talented, or just equally talented individuals who want to create community change or who make community impact. And they can take out basically a franchise type of deal. I should be able to do that, create that, pass it on to the next person, they replicate it in the city or inner city next to them, near them, if that makes sense. That to me is how I would take it to the next level. And in fact, started that in partnering with local colleges and universities in the New Jersey area. So that's the next step for me.
You've had some good partnerships with the Boys and Girls Club and with the YMCA. Can you expand through their network to other cities and do it that way?
Absolutely, actually. So through our partnership with the Boys and Girls Club, I was able to get a partnership. Actually, no, through the work that I was doing with the Boys and Girls Club, I was able to get a partnership with the College of New Jersey, which is a teacher's college, which is the perfect hub to solicit young people to go out and do this art or create, execute the curriculum, excuse me. And that is the perfect, to me, that is the perfect idea of expansion. And through the College of New Jersey, both hands will be a part of the First Ever Arts District in Trenton, New Jersey. So that is another opportunity. So once you follow it and once you create opportunities and take advantage of opportunities, one thing leads to the other thing. And rightfully so. The Boys and Girls Club, the YMCA, the College of New Jersey, now the Princeton Arts Council, and it all sort of happens once you make yourself vulnerable, make yourself like marketable, and get out there. Establish those partnerships.
Katerina, how about you? I mean, this is such a simple model. Couldn't it be expanded in a number of different ways? I know you personally have said you made the choice to keep it small because of your life circumstances at the time. But could you envision, I mean, how could it go from here?
I think the model is really simple and it definitely could be expanded to other people, into other specialties that are doing work abroad. And even, in the US, when I was starting this company, my mentor was like, let's make this a for-profit company and sell this to hospitals. And I was like, that's not really what I want to do. So it's definitely expandable. Just talking to people, I know that Johnson & Johnson kind of has something that they're trying to start that is not cataracts and it's not really specialties, but it's like kits that go with physicians on health projects that kind of have like a basic supplies. So there kind of is that. In terms of my particular organization, we're kind of figuring out what we're going to do next. So unfortunately I don't have a great answer to that question.
So there's some great questions that come out of this too. There's several questions around social capital and how do you build social capital? How do you make the connections to be able to make what you want to do possible? Can you speak to, we'll start with you, Katerina, let's try to go the other way. How did you manage to make those connections that even made it possible?
I think, number one, be someone that people want to do business with, like be nice to everyone that you meet, because, whether they're a janitor or a nurse or anyone, just be nice to them and be genuine. Don't ever overpromise and underdeliver. And just talk to everyone. You can learn something from everyone that you meet, even if they're the lowest on the totem pole. And just talk to everyone. Go to every social event. Go to everything that the entrepreneurship panel puts or the entrepreneurship thing goes on.
Exactly.
Just talk to everyone because so many things that have happened for Cataract Pact and in my life in general, and I know that I'm not supposed to be giving life advice, has just been through talking to people and tell people what you're all about and tell people what you need in your organization, because especially Winston being such a small town, everyone knows everyone, and if you really need an accountant, then tell someone that you need an accountant, and their best friend may be an accountant. So just talk to every single person that you can talk to. Tell them your business idea. don't force it on them, but give them, like, have your elevator pitch ready, have your 30-second pitch ready, and tell it to everyone that you meet. Everyone on the plane. I mean, I'm not a very, like, outgoing person in general, but if you are, then that's a great strength. So talk to people on airplanes, talk to everyone that you possibly can. So.
What was the question again?
How you built the social capital, how you made the connections that make it possible.
Oh, yes, I went to every ICE program to exist during my time as an undergraduate. No, seriously, the first time I came to Wake during like preview week, Accepted Students Preview Week, or whatever it's called, I went to one of the workshops that they had with the entrepreneurship department. I remember one of the robots, it was like a fluffy robot. I was like, oh, they do cool stuff here, word. I didn't know that I was gonna, I know that I wanted to start a business. I know I wanted to be an entrepreneur, but I didn't know in what. And I seen a sign said, it's like in the spring semester of my freshman year, startup venture capital or startup seed grants. Okay, seed grants. I got an idea. Started getting my ideas. No, it was in the fall because I pitched it in January. I got it. But it was only. I'm not even gonna say only, it was $1,000, and I had 12 teens, and we got notebooks, a couple of snacks, bought some DVDs, we analyzed movies, and we talked about art, and we made a couple of paintings, and it was a hit. And the next year, talked to Polly, talked to Ms. Burton, got the application for the bigger grant, which was the $10,000 grant, the Hobbs and Chambers Fund, right? Composed the proposal and got that. So now I'm on a roll. Now I'm feeling unstoppable. And like I am at that moment when I got those 2 grants, and of course it wasn't perfect. Of course the proposals weren't perfect, but they gave me a chance and they believed in my vision. And that was enough for me to know that this can transcend to other people who will also probably believe in my vision. So going back to what Jonathan said, if you have a vision and if you have a mission, stick to that. And stay true to it. Be honest, like you have to want to say what you were saying. You have to want it to succeed. You have to stay true to it. You have to believe it's going to make impact or become bigger. Otherwise, if you don't believe that, other people with the capital definitely won't believe it, and it's going to be hard for you to get that capital. Capital is hard getting capital, and it's discouraging when you get the no's and when the proposal is declined. It's discouraging, but so long as you believe in it, it'll come.
So when you started out, you didn't even have a space to do this.
Oh, no.
Now you have 2 major partners involved with you. How did you get them on board?
They heard about the work that I did. They seen the videos. So that's another thing. The advantage of working with the arts is that, and creativity is that with the digital works, YouTube is massive now, video works is massive now. We can get it out to the public. So one of the other investments that the things that I invested in was a 20 by 60 foot screen. We put those bad boys in the park and we invited everybody out to see it. And these were films that the young artists made. And they were very impressive. So when you see that and you see the young people are making it and these young people have a voice, an active and intelligent voice, people are inquisitive and they're eager to learn more. So it's just like small marketing tips like that, or tokens like that, and word of mouth. And Trent is only 7 square miles, so it's about 60,000 people. So word gets around fast when you're doing good, integral, mission-driven work.
How about you, Jonathan? How did you get the social capital to get started and make the connections to get to the people that you interviewed for your research, and you ended up with the TED Talk out of all this? How did you get to that?
Yeah, so a lot of building social capital is luck, being in the right place at the right time, but it's also putting yourself out there. The TED Talk, just to how I got that, there was an open call for TEDx talks in Hickory, North Carolina. I submitted my own name to the TEDx, and I was like, hey, I'm doing some great work. You might want to feature me. And so, out of all the proposals that were submitted, mine bubbled to the top. But I also echo some statements of doing great work, and people will find you. My research work, I remember one day opening my inbox when I was here at Wake, and I had gotten an email from the North Carolina Department of Rural something And they were interested in the work that I was doing, and I'm like, well, I hope you realize I'm just a 20-something senior at Wake Forest, and this is not what I'm doing full-time right now. So if you do great things, the contacts will find you, but it's okay to put your name in the hat for something, or really, step out there. I remember there was a creativity scholar that I really liked his work, and I wanted to talk to him. So what did I do? I emailed, I called. Did I ever get a response back? No. But if I would have, that would have been really awesome. So, you're going to hear no a lot, but you're also going to hear yes sometimes too. So be willing to put yourself out there and then do great work, and the social capital will be there to support you at the end of the day.
Yeah, to Katarina's point at the beginning, you were just saying the more times you put yourself out there, it's a numbers game a bit. If you talk to enough people, you're going to get some return on that investment. Networking. What are you going to add?
I was just gonna say some of the best things that I ever did was go up to someone, even if it was like a really important person in a speech or whatever, and just be like, hey, can I buy you a cup of coffee? And someone told me that to do that when I was first starting off with Cataract Fact, and it was great advice, so I'm passing it on to you guys. Don't ever be intimidated if someone, is really successful. Just say, hey, can I get you a cup of coffee? And we go to lunch, can I pick your brain? Because they've been where you've been, and they want to help you for the most part, so.
Don't worry about the capital at first either. Getting advice, doing things for free, getting that experience to begin with is very important. And most of the time, these investors want to see that you are eager and ready to do the work that's necessary to get to the next level. And if you're just after the, oh no, I want to pick your brains because I want to make $10 million in the first 10 years of my business, come on, it's not going to happen.
So, in going through this journey, what was the most rewarding part, and what are you glad you didn't know?
That's a good question.
Well, all right, let's start with Jonathan. What about you?
What am I glad I didn't know? Well, I think when you ever start a venture, you start out with a little bit of ignorance in whatever you're doing. So whether it's in the dog treat space or the cataract space or the nonprofit art space, you don't really know, and that's a good thing. Just because you don't know something, you're able to innovate kind of freely. When you start adding these layers of constraints, you suddenly get results that are not too creative at the end of the day. So I think not knowing a lot of things is a good thing, and I would advocate for delaying all the knowledge for a little bit until you get a solution that's very creative.
So we're delighted to be able to welcome Bill Zandy here for the last few minutes of this.
Sorry, I'm late.
His flight was delayed and he couldn't get here, as we told you at the beginning, so we're so glad that you actually did make it here for part of the time. And so let me ask you, jump right in with a question for you then, since we've been asking some of the others and we haven't heard so much from you. Let me ask you, one of the things that people were intrigued with was the whole sort of logistical and operational side of a business like helping students, where you're trying to get books and supplies from schools in one part of the country and these schools over here down to schools in a different part of the country, and how do you ever find those and make the connections? How did you actually get that whole thing set up? I know it came about from a hurricane, but what happened then?
Right, well, as you know, I went through a lot of trials, and a lot of ideas came up about what we should do and what we should do, what was mostly efficient, both time efficient and both cost efficient. And initially we just did cold calling, so we tried to identify schools that we believe to be the most affluent and schools that we believe to be the poorest. And we initially just did that by cold calling, and we asked some schools who we believe to be the wealthiest whether they had supplies, and we asked schools who we believe to be the poorest whether they needed supplies, and that's how we initially connected them. And then after we started to gain a little bit more momentum and schools started to donate to us on a more regular basis, we gathered a larger inventory, and we figured that just simply cold calling wasn't efficient enough. So we needed to come up with a new way. And another way was just to just put all the supplies in one place, in one area, and